All right, I think we're live. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I always like introing it that way because since it goes up on YouTube later, I never know when anyone's going to be watching this. So I figure I'll cover off all my bases right in the beginning. My name is Don. I'm the consumables manager here at Trotec Laser in Canada, and I'm going to talk as little as possible because I am the least talented person on this stream, especially when it comes to knowing my stuff, which is kind of silly. We'll quickly go around the room. Obviously, if anyone is in chat, we're so happy that you've decided to drop in and join us this morning. Drop us a message, ask any questions you like. It's a pretty conversational stream. We're going to be talking about some of our materials this morning, but prior to getting started with that, we would love if you would let us know where you're from, say hello, that sort of thing. And in the meantime, I will introduce the cast of characters, I guess, that I've got with me. I never know where to go with that. Maybe we'll start just on my right. I never know quite. Yeah. Okay. It's weird. James, introduce yourself. Let us know who you are.
I'm James. I'm Trotec Laser Canada too, and I've been doing this half as long as Mike Clark.
80,
Mike?
90.
I'm
Mike Clark. Yes, I've been manually engraving. I started when I was 10 years old in 1970, so that's how old I am. So I've been selling lasers since 1992. And I've been selling consumable material since 1985, and I've been engraving them since 1970. So,
wow, we look like past, present, and future when you look at me, you, and James all lined up in a line.
exactly, that's right.
Kelly?
Yikes.
I'm Kelly. I am the consumables rep. I handle Quebec, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and BC.
Awesome. And our very special guest this week, Bianca, would you say hello?
Hi, my name is Bianca. I work at Innovative Laminations, a Trotec company. I'm the sales and marketing manager for Innovative. We manufacture all of the engraving consumables materials, the decorative plastic for Trotec, as well as for other markets. And I've been we've been manufacturing the consumables products since 2000 at Innovative in New Bern, North Carolina, and I've been with the company for 13 years.
That's so cool.
We're
very fortunate to have Bianca here. I love anytime I get to interact with Bianca. She's always so sweet because 99% of the time it's usually a question or a problem that I have to email her with, and it's very few people that I get to interact with every day who are always really like sweet and kind. And aside from maybe the four of you, I think. So no, I'm really fortunate to have you all here today. Just really quickly, Bianca, would you be able to tell us a little bit about Innovative Laminations? I know you said you've been with the company for 13 years. Just sort of, what sort of Trotec products, if somebody is familiar with our consumables, would come from Innovative Laminations? What would they know you for, and sort of what's it like, working in that business sort of day in and day out?
Sure. Innovative produces all of the TroPly and the TroLase products for Trotec. So just a little bit about the TroLase. It's a decorative plastic. We're taking a very thin film, usually less than a mil thick, and we're laminating it to an impact modified acrylic core, or PMMA. This works best with the lasers, and that is one of the growing products that we have at ILC. We have a wide range of colors and finishes. We manufacture it in a heat lamination process. And then to cut over to the TroPly, it's a decorative plastic where we laminate the same film, as I said, very thin, less than a mil thick. That would be the color, whether it's a solid color, a metallic, a wood grain, or any other pattern. And we laminate that to an ABS core for the TroPly. And so that's usually best for rotary engraving. The acrylic is also a great exterior grade product. I think Don highlights it in the presentation in our marketing materials, but most of the products are UV stable. And I guess that's the basic overview. I mean, I have tons of detail and could go on and on about the products, but that's just the quick overview of TroPly and TroLase. We also can laminate clear caps onto the products that provide enhanced performance properties. So if you're looking to UV LED print, we have clear printable caps that we can run over almost any of those colors. We also have what we call the SR, or scratch resistant cap, which provides extra durability that we can run over, again, almost any product. And we can provide materials in matte and gloss finishes.
That's so cool. I mean, you're in the right place if you'd like to go on and on, sort of way into detail on the different products. This is the right stream for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really quickly,
I can tell you that SR plastic
resistant. Yeah.
I can tell you that the SR plastic is the greatest thing that one of the greatest things that they've made, and it was a big game changer for a lot of the engravers and the industry when they came out with that material. Because scratching is a huge issue on the golds and silvers. So,
yeah, it is great. Like you said.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
No worries. I was just going to say it is great for the metallics. We can put it on any type of product, but because the metallics are a little more sensitive in terms of, say, maybe a fingerprinting or things like that, sometimes that SR cap can also reduce any of those issues.
Yeah, it was a big deal when we used to use the nose cone all the time.
The nose cone.
I was going to say it was a big deal when we had nose cone engraved, like when we were using a CNC style cutting, because it did cut down on the scratching that happened with the nose cone. It was writing on the materials. So, because we couldn't even use a nose cone back in the old days because of the scratching, right? So we used to have these intricate things of putting hairspray on the gold so it wouldn't scratch, and that was it was a nightmare. So it came out, it was a game changer. So
Aussie Naturals, right?
Yeah.
I was going to ask why Mike needs hairspray, but maybe that's too. How have Lamicoids, changed in the time that you've been using them, Mike? I assume they've come pretty far since when you were doing sort of like your first engravings to what you'd be using today with the SRs and stuff.
Uh-oh.
Hello, sorry.
Mike.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch. Sorry, you cut out for a second there.
No, sorry, I was just asking. So I assume that. I assume that Lamicoid materials in the time that you've been using them have probably changed quite a bit. I mean, like, how would a modern Lamicoid stack up against the stuff that you would have been using when you started doing sort of manual rotary engravings? Aside from not needing hairspray,
back in
maybe.
Yeah, exactly. We first started selling lasers back in '92. Then we were having to use off-the-shelf material, which was ABS core. So the problem with that again was it didn't engrave too bad, but it would flame up really bad when you went to cut it. So and you get a lot of people were using cap material back then, which is laminated plastic on top of the impact acrylic or the ABS, and it was hard to get through it and everything like that. So it was a real trial and tribulations type scenario, and certainly when Innovative was manufacturing their product through somebody else, Mr. Don, that product was a big change in the industry. So it made our life a lot easier when we were engraving. So.
And that, we have a whole quality team at ILC. We brought on a quality manager who had spent his entire career in the film industry. So he's very well versed with how our films are made and being able to really develop and work with our film vendors on creating the best quality films, consistent from lot to lot, the color consistency, the performance qualities, everything is checked on a lot to lot basis coming in at ILC. So just the consistency of the product should be great.
I wanted to
I had
highlight
one
a quick question from the. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I guess my one question, and I know Bianca mentioned it a little bit in her intro, and it's something that I think is that really needs to be clarified, is the UV stability of the material. Because when you say UV stability, are you referring to the top layer or are you referring to the core?
With TroLase, it's both. It's both the film, the top layer, and also the acrylic core. Acrylic is a great exterior grade product, so would highly recommend the TroLase for that purpose. Also, the solid pigment films past at least 2 years without any color change or fade of the film with UV exposure. Again, we have metallics that are exterior grade. We developed those so that you can use those products for exterior applications, and when they're exposed to UV light. You just have to be careful because there are some metallic products that are not the exterior grade metallics that would be recommended for indoor use, but that's why we developed the exterior grade metallics, was to satisfy those requirements.
Is there a life on the exterior, or like you said, 2 years for the TroLase?
Yeah, there are a lot of other factors that come into it. So, you know, depending if they're exposed to harsh elements, if someone is cleaning them with certain chemicals every day, that can all affect the performance of the product. So, like I said, if it's signage up in an area and it's not exposed to a lot of harsh chemicals and there's not a lot of wear and tear on it, then it could probably well surpass the 2 years. The 2 years is really for no color change or fade. And even after that, it still should be a great product. It's just, you know, we test all of our stuff in-house, and also our film vendors test their films for the exterior grade weatherability. So without knowing all the factors that come into play with the materials, that's what we're comfortable basically guaranteeing. So.
That makes perfect sense. I wanted to quickly jump to a question from the chat here about TroPly Plus. I don't get as much opportunity to work with the TroPly as I do with the TroLase. Like Bianca sort of mentioned, it's the TroPly is sort of principally for the rotary engraving side of the business, as opposed to more the laser engraving side. Kelly or James, would you be able to talk to the TroPly Plus product specifically?
The TroPly Plus, it has the same UV film on it, I believe. The regular TroPly is not an outdoor material, so we tend to offer that one, or just gear people towards the TroLase.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I can see how because Bianca, the greatest of all time of acrylics.
Yes.
I told you. I wanted to ask Kelly, in terms of, so I think I know the answer to this, but I want to, again, turn to the expert. In terms of what are our most popular products sort of year in and year out, I feel like the TroLase, specifically like the black whites, the black white blacks, that sort of thing, the TroLase really is the king, essentially, right? I mean, do we sell anything in the volumes that we do with TroLase? It really is sort of our number one, I think. Is that fair to say?
The TroLase 1/16 thickness by far is the biggest seller. But we also sell a lot of the Thins because people are wanting to tag equipment or tag trophies or work with round objects. So TroLase 1/16 and the 1/32 are both very popular.
It's always been a weird one for me since I. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say on the TroLase Thins, if you're gonna use it for, it does come standard with adhesive. So I always make
the
sure
thin
that
one,
it has adhesive on it. The thin, because a lot of guys will use that for trophy plates and everything, and with the laser machines, you can kiss cut down to the adhesive, and then you can just basically peel and then stick right on the product. So, you know, I always make the I always tell people, I mean, if you look at doing a trophy plate, for example, if you were doing a metal plate, you have to engrave the 12 by 24 sheet of metal. Then you've got to shear it. Then you may have to corner around it. Then you've got to put tape on it. And then you got to peel the masking off the tape. And you're sitting there going, you know, you're trying to get the masking off. And guys, you know, they over the years they've come up with pucks, and hope that's a Canadian thing with the puck, you know, taking off the cover. And then you got to stick it on the trophy. So if you buy the TroLase Thins, you're doing everything all in one shot. Basically, you're doing the cutting, the sheet and everything, and then you just take the sheet off the bed, and then you can just peel and stick. It's such a great time saver for you when you're doing that type of product. So when you're doing like trophy awards, or you're, like Kelly says, you're sticking them on other items such as machines or things like that. So
yeah, and that thin product, the one that comes with adhesive, is the very thinnest one. So the 0.004 and the 0.008 thickness. But we can put 3M adhesive on any of our substrates. So if you wanted to go with a little bit thicker, because it's a little bit easier to work without getting any warping, then you can just order that with adhesive.
James.
I had a question from my cell phone, actually. Somebody who couldn't log in for some reason and asked the question, but is still gratefully watching and happy. Brian from BC here. He's asking, he says about outdoor material with, it has the outdoor symbol on it. Are you saying that it only lasts for 2 years, or what's the deal?
No.
With? Okay.
And basically, that is in regards to the UV stability. So when we put it through our testing at 2 years, you could begin to see some color change or slight fade, as you would with many products over time if they're in direct UV sunlight for 2 years.
Okay, perfect. So yes, it is UV, or it is outdoor weatherable. It will last a lot longer than 2 years, but at 2 years, the color fastness is not guaranteed after that.
Correct.
Okay, cool. Hopefully that answers your question, Brian.
Thank you, Brian. You guys brought up a really great point, just sort of in passing, and it's one I wanted to touch on really fast, which is particularly, I believe, with the lamecoids, you have to be careful about the chemicals you use to clean them, right? You can't just clean them with any old cleaning material because it will cause certain reactions in the material itself. Am I right in saying that?
Correct.
What would be the recommended sort of what would be the go-to?
So obviously you could use a mild soap or water, but we also use like a 99% isopropyl alcohol, works well without damaging the materials. And, you know, we do test other cleaners, you know, upon request, but just something that's non-abrasive usually. So, you know, the harsher the chemical, the more likely it is to attack the surface of the film.
I have a lot of customers who use, I have a lot of customers who use the Mr. Clean Magic Eraser. Works really good.
I see Mike holding it up over there.
Yeah, Mr. Clean.
Yeah.
Mr. Clean actually has a magic eraser right now. So.
Oh no, Mike, I think you're muted.
You're muted, Mike. There you go. There you go.
We have to unmute our mic.
sorry. Yeah, I got to unmute our mic.
Mic drop.
Yeah.
I always wet this down. I wet this down. So, and that cuts down a little bit on the abrasiveness of this material. So I always tell people that if you're using the Mr. Clean Magic Eraser, if you're doing like a red on white or a black on white, don't press too hard, because you can sometimes just see the scratching. White's not such a big deal, but white on black or something. So, but this thing works really, really well. I use it on the edges all the time, too, if you know, if there's some gumminess or something like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, like James said, you heard it from Mr. Clean himself, so you know it's good. We also just want to quickly touch on we post it suits you. We posted in the chat that we can speak principally to the Canadian web store, but of course, if you're looking for a local distributor, you can go to troteclaser.com and there's a contact page, and they'll be able to forward you off to the correct person who'll be able to get you materials, no matter sort of where your closest Trotec might be. One question from the chat here is asking about a material that can be lased with different power to achieve different colors. I imagine this is one that you guys get quite a bit. I mean, I only know sort of maybe like a 2-layer or a 3-layer. Is that usually where you would steer somebody towards, like a 2 or 3-layer Lamicoid, or?
You don't really get a different color.
I assume if you're trying to get
Yeah.
No.
I think what they're saying is that if they don't use enough power to get through the cap, can they get like a pink tone out of the red cap? Usually that happens accidentally.
That's true.
Different colors. Yeah, if somebody wants to use different colors, normally I'll suggest using the reverse material. Right?
Yeah.
So reverse, and then you'll paint. And I mean, if I was in the engraving industry and I was doing a sign, I would try to use the reverse material as much as I can, because of the durability of that material, because everything is on the backside. So if you are in a high traffic area, a lot of people will use that type of material because it's harder to deface it. You can't go, if you put a key on it or whatever, then you can't be defaced. And the nice thing about it, if somebody's looking for more than 2 colors, or they're looking for a color that's not stock, then they certainly can make that color with a reverse material. So.
It's very true.
And I think we put do we still put that black coating in the back to stop the
we usually do
light?
a base coat, yes, to block light from shining through.
That's very important. Yeah, that's always been the problem in the old days, is they used to take clear acrylic and they put the color on the back, and then and then they would paint it, and then the light would come through and it would affect the way it looks. And ILC puts that extra coating on there, which makes it a lot harder for that light to come through. And that was again another positive on the material. So.
Yeah, we're always trying to continually improve the products, and we take the feedback from Trotec, and we're constantly working on new research and development to improve the TroLase and, even the TroPly. And, our forte, or how the business started, was really with thin gauge materials. So the TroLase Thins and the TroLase Lights, when we first started, our equipment was really dialed in and provide us with an advantage for those thin gauges. We have the most experience producing those. Obviously, we're very well versed with the thicker materials as well, but we really have some great advantages in producing a very consistent, great product in those thinner gauges. We have a lot of experience with that.
I'm going to incorporate James's hand raising system because I feel it works really well.
I got it from this guy.
We have one here, Mike, specifically directed to you from, I believe, a customer, Dave, who said a couple years ago you
Dave, yes, I saw that.
helped him come with our product for the pipe sizer. Do you remember the product or the project, and maybe what would modern Mike Clark recommend as opposed to past Mike Clark?
Well, I think when Dave was looking at that, I think we were using the TroLase material. Again, the only issue with the TroLase, again, if there's a lot of I think there was a lot of hand holding on that, where there was a lot of rubbing and everything like that. So you might want to go to something, maybe the TroLase with the extra clear coat on the top, so that you get a little bit more durability on that. You can still laser engrave it. Again, you could use a reverse material too on that, so everything now is on the back side. So It's kind of a unique tool that he came up.
That's how people describe me usually, a unique. Anyhow, there's this great question from Jonathan about cutting the TroLase, but you inspired me, Mike, because I wanted to ask Kelly. I know you've been working as our consumables rep for, I mean, you're one of the most knowledgeable people I get to talk to sort of each day. I was curious because I hadn't even realized necessarily that we could put certain coatings on just about any material. How often do you get requests for like a custom material? Is that something that comes up a lot for somebody? Oh, I need this with like also the clear coat, and then I need this or that, or is it usually kind of, you know, I need the TroLase and the TroPly, and you know, that's it?
Well, usually we geared people to the colors we already have.
Right.
Yeah, we don't get very many custom requests. Maybe if sometimes it might be a color. And in those cases, usually we find some other solution just because for one customer, the minimum will usually be too high.
Right.
But yeah, we usually are able to work within the scope that we have.
I think the last one that we did was Tim Hortons. I think that was
a color,
ago, right?
Yeah.
It was a color, right? It was a top color, right? So
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, that was at that turquoise. They're not turquoise, but kind of a green.
The custom color green. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We did a custom color for Tim Hortons.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
I
didn't
know that. For anyone outside of Canada, Tim Hortons is a restaurant that makes bad coffee. Is that contentious? I'm sorry.
I just saw a question pop up that is a two-part question that I was going to ask Mike because I know he does a video on this. When engraving and cutting are just our regular TroLase products, question one is how to avoid getting the gummy sticky edge. And part two is when engraving the same material, sometimes there's like a smoky outline to the engraving, or the core color doesn't come through nice and clear. So thought that would be a great question because I get that a lot.
Yeah, and I got that question so many times that I sort of went off the edge one day, and I actually did a 49-minute video on it. So because I was having to answer the same question.
See if I can find that. Hold on.
Post it.
Yeah, they were all
great one.
They were all James customers. I couldn't figure it out.
Hey.
No, they weren't James customers. No. First of all, because maybe talk about the sticky edges, and maybe Bianca can go into this. I tend to find that the sticky edges, the material tends to off gas for a certain amount of time. So those sticky edges normally will go away if you leave the material, overnight or whatever. If I have to do something quick, that's normally when I use the Mr. Clean Magic Eraser, and I'll just outline the material. The big thing that I'll typically do a lot of times though, when I am cutting out, and I do bring this up in the video, is I don't cut all the way through the material. And this serves a couple of purposes. One is that it cuts down on the amount of heat that's on the edge, which will exasperate the stickiness of the material. But then I can take the whole sheet right out of the material or out of the bed when it's done, and then I can clean the whole piece, and then I can just snap the pieces away from the big sheet. That's typically, I don't have a lot of issues with the tacky edges if you leave it for a little bit of time and let it off gas. Bianca, is that your thing?
Yeah, that's correct. And the reason why you will see the sticky edges to some extent, which like you said, you can work with it, and there are ways to reduce the amount of stickiness. However, you will always see a little bit of stickiness due to the impact modifiers that are in the acrylic. It's a little bit of rubber, and it helps prevent the sheet from being too brittle. So on the other end, when you have people who are cutting down a sheet, if you have a straight acrylic, it is going to be very brittle and it will crack, and you'll have shards at the edge if there were no impact modifiers in the acrylic. So the acrylic does have impact modifiers to prevent brittleness, which can cause a slew of other issues. So
yeah, I think the biggest thing is don't use alcohol on the, like, I know the isopropyl alcohol, but again, you don't want to, you got to be careful with the alcohols that you're using, because that acrylic can crack. And also sometimes people will get it on the top and everything like that, and it'll come off. I normally find the Mr. Clean Magic Eraser normally will get rid of any of that stickiness on the edge pretty quick. You can just sort of run it around real quick and it seems to clean it up pretty good. Mm-hmm. The other question of the staining in the background, typically you'll see in that Don brought the video up one day years and years ago. I was engraving 2 pieces of acrylic, and I wasn't really paying attention, and I was sort of trying to do a 3D relief mode, and I noticed as I got farther down on the acrylic went clear. And it tweaked me a little bit as to the problem that we have is dust that's being generated by the laser process, and it's that dust that's creating that issue with the background. And normally we see that on a white core material, red on white, blue on white, something like that. So when you're laser engraving, I started going out of focus. But the out of focus allowed me to, what happened was it generated less dust. Now it generates a little bit more heat, so you got to be a bit careful with it. But the nice thing about it is that when you generate less heat, you generate less dust, you generate less contamination that happens in the background. The Mr. Clean Magic Eraser also helped me out cleaning that core down too. So if you did get some staining and there was still some background issues there, the Mr. Clean would clean it up. The one thing I also point out to people, if you watch your engraving, most of the smoke that gets generated is during the cutting process, not during the engraving process. So people used to say, oh, it's great. I got the machine run from the bottom up now I don't go top down. It doesn't get contaminated. And I tell people, well, I would sit here with sheets after sheet and I would try that, and that really didn't do anything. If you watch the engraving process, most of the staining happens during the cutting process. So you can sort of generate a less staining if you're not going all the way through the material, which generates less dust, and therefore you get less contamination. So that's why I would tell people, don't go all the way through the material, because we used to do that in the old days with with the CNC machines. We wouldn't go all the way through the material, and that would allow the badges not to sort of release off the full sheet. So a lot of times, that's what we would do. So I tell people to do that with the laser machine. So certainly going out of focus is one thing. Cleaning the material with the Magic Eraser, and the third biggest thing is everybody always uses too much power. Okay, as Bianca is saying, that top material is you're lucky if it's like 1 thou.
Yeah, 1 mil. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you don't need a lot of power to go through that. And I'd go into people's shops and they'd be engraving like halfway through the material, and I'd be going, well, no wonder you're having an issue. So you don't need a lot of power to get through there. So keep the power down as much as you can. And I mean, I know we give you suggestions for our material. And again, I always tell people maybe to experiment a little bit with it too, because, every machine might be a little bit different, and you may be using a different piece of equipment. So again, you just want to get through the top of the material. And when you cut through it, you maybe want to go I normally leave about 20 thou in the material just to be able to snap it. And if you watch the video, you'll see I pulled a full sheet out of the bed and then basically just snap the pieces. And you know, I clean it with the magic eraser, and it's done quickly. So
exhaust is a huge factor as well in this. A lot of people will go and they'll buy a $70,000 laser, and then they'll be like, well, what is the cheapest fan I can possibly get? Oh yes, we'll go to the hardware store and get the $100 fan because hey, that's the cheapest. And it doesn't, you know, a proper fan on a decent sized lasers, you know, going to cost you upwards of $1,000 to get the right pressure for the machine. And this is going to pull a lot of that stuff that was going to lie down on your materials. It's going to pull a lot of that out through the air. Now it's not going to pull it all out, but definitely will pull a generous portion of the dust away before it can lay down on the material.
Yeah, because you're going to generate static electricity inside the machine, and that you know, that then going to be attracted to the material, right? So you know, eliminating that dust, and if you go out of focus, it's amazing how much dust you'll get away with. And the biggest complaint that we had in the industry, maybe not so much nowadays, but in the old days, was people would be rotary engraving ABS material, and the black ABS, when you rotary engraved it, would come up nice and shiny black. And then people would buy a laser machine, and then they'd go and they'd get this, you know, the laser roll material, and it would come up gray, right? And people would complain over and over and over about the fact that the background was not a nice, solid, clean black. And if you think about it, as Bianca said, this is modified acrylic. Well, what does acrylic do when you engrave it? It turns white. And it's that white dust that gets trapped inside the background is why it's going gray. So if you go out of focus, you end up melting the material a little bit more, and then that background is a lot blacker or a lot redder or a lot greener, depending on which material you're working with. And it's the dust in the material that's creating that grayness or lightness to the actual material. And that's why I always tell people to go out of focus. And that's why, you know, when I came up with that process, you know, to me, it was a godsend for the industry, because, and you can see in the picture here, you know, the difference between the top left corner and the bottom, you know, the bottom squares, how much blacker that background is. And that is strictly just going out of focus. That's just a series of different depths of going out of focus. Power is always the same. It's just a matter of going out of focus a little bit more. And that solves a lot of issues for people who are doing the black core or the red core or the green core, where they were complaining about that grayness or that whiteness in the material.
That was like having a director's commentary on a mic video. That was kind of cool.
So,
yes. I wanted to, so I apologize to Kim. I will come back to your, I put the link to it in chat. So I do suggest that everyone, if you're at all interested, it really is an exhaustive look at how to engrave that material specifically. Really, I mean, the best possible video I think that could be made. I wanted to just touch on Corey's question really, really fast, because it's sort of in relation to what we were talking about. You were talking about being able to snap the part off after having sort of engraved it partway through, and he's curious if that will still give you the sort of nice clean edge, and then will that work on cutout inlays as well, or is that sort of relegated to just rotary engraving or
straight cut mostly?
Yeah, I mean the snap, I mean, there's really a minimal amount of material left. I mean, it snaps pretty easy. So I think the edge, when I look at the edge, it's quite clean. And I would say the edge is no different than you would cut. You would never notice, you know, the edge of the bottom. You can see me snapping out the pieces here. And there's very minimal material there. And the edges you would be hard pressed to see a difference between a laser cut edge and where it's been snapped. So
with this method, there on the whole, there's really no kerf. Like when you snap it, it snaps right on the zero. If you're planning to cut a 1 inch by 1 inch square, and you cut all the way through, you actually get a tiny bit less than 1 inch. But if you use the score and snap method, you're generally getting your exact 1 inch.
Yeah, and you can see how thin that, like James said, that the cut line on there is really minimal. So the beauty of it is you're generating very small amount of residue. I've even sometimes, what I've done is I've gone over it twice. I've just tested to see going over the cut line twice. The other thing, just while I think about it too, the other big problem that people do, and they're working in Corel or Illustrator, is they draw 1x3 inch box, and then they put the text in it, and then they take that 1x3 box with the cutout line, and then they put one beside it, and then they put another one beside it, and they put another one, and then they do another row, and they take the whole row, and then what you've got is you've got cuts going over top of each other, so your material's actually cutting twice. So in that video, what I do is I show you how to create an actual straight line, so the line goes all the way down, so you're minimizing the amount of cuts that are in the material, and that speeds everything up, but it also makes your life a lot easier because you're not cutting over twice, and that's a big problem. A lot of people will do that. I remember one guy emailed me after I did that video, like about a week after I did it, and he said I saved him 70% on his production time by doing what I said in that video. He said, I can't believe how fast I can produce badges now. And it was just the fact that he was probably doing those sort of things. There's just a couple of tweaks in there because, you know, the amount of labor that goes into this, sometimes you see people doing it, I'm going, you know, you want to just take it off, snap it, clean it, and then off you go, right? So, you know, minimizing labor and residue and wastage is a big thing, so.
That's definitely a mistake that I made. That's something that you helped me in setting up files 100%. Great advice, Mike. Okay, there's a lot of positive comments for everyone on here, but I had to just pop that one in there. I want to come back to Kim's question here about the reverse material, specifically because we have a few different reverse materials, both a TroLase material and a TroGlass material. And so I was wondering if we could sort of speak to the differences between the two, and then you know, what you might recommend, you know, depending on the different application. I mean, this was one that I found really intimidating when I first started, actually. I think trying to explain, even in the catalog, how the process works can be kind of tricky, but once you get it, you realize you can do so much with this material. It really is like something very special. Sorry, I get lost in watching this video. Bianca, would you be able to tell us a little bit about the sort of TroLase Reverse specifically and how it differs from like a typical TroLase material?
Yeah, absolutely. So typically when you're laminating, we're laminating to the first surface of a black acrylic or a white acrylic. With the TroLase Reverse, we have a clear impact modified acrylic, and we're laminating the film to the back side of the acrylic. And as we mentioned previously, we're also doing a base coat on most of those products to prevent the light from shining through. And so you're actually looking through the clear surface to the film on the back side, which I think it was, as Mike mentioned, it adds extra protection for that film, and you can reverse engrave it and do paint fill and get a lot of really great effects and almost some more 3D effects that really pop for your signage.
100%. Kelly, I was curious if you'd be able to sort of speak to the reverse materials in general. I mean, if somebody was thinking about doing outdoor signage, you know, where would you usually steer them?
It depends on what they're looking for. So the TroLase material is a more supple material. So there is some bend into, it's similar to the TroLase, the regular TroLase. The acrylic on the front is actually a cloudy acrylic. It's not super clear. It's a little bit less expensive than the TroGlass Reverse. So if somebody really wanted that rigid acrylic that's clear, I would gear them towards the TroLase Reverse. So it just depends on what the customer wants to do, what they need it for. Both are good for outdoor use. So there's no reason to gear them either way. In that case, it's really a preference.
Makes sense. I hadn't considered that, but that makes a lot of sense. That sometimes the right material to recommend for a job can depend even on the placement of the job. I mean, seems so obvious when I say it out loud, but even speaking to sort of the rigidity of like a TroLase Reverse, which is going to be obviously quite a bit thicker, let's say, than a TroLase, maybe just doesn't work in some instances where you've got to be able to get a sign up into a strange place or an awkward place or whatever it might be.
Yeah, and if
certainly,
they want to do the sign that has the standoffs and they want that really clear, glassy look, they would need to use the TroLase. If they're doing the, sorry?
I was just going to say, also to note, I know that we sell more of the TroLase Reverse with a matte finish on the front surface, which is why it wouldn't be a high gloss product. That said, we can also do a gloss finish on that first surface for the TroLase Reverse. I know it hasn't been as popular.
Yeah, we have that in the TroPly Reverse. We do carry the gloss one. But in the TroLase, for some reason, we never picked it up, but maybe we just didn't have the demand.
Yeah, not as many requests for it.
Yeah.
So really quickly,
just go back to your comment, Don. Sorry. That's really important, like what you said about the sign. You need to ask the customer where the sign is going to go, because that can really make or break what your job is. I mean, if somebody says I need a sign, and I've seen this happen so many times, and the most common one was sublimation. You'd get a sublimated plate, and then the guy would stick it out in the sun or something, and it would be gone after like 4 months, right? So, it's always important that you ask the customer where the sign's going to go, so that you can pick the appropriate material to make the sign for that location. Is it going to go in bright sun? Is it, is it going to be outside during the winter? Is it going to go to the Sahara Desert? I mean, I've seen so many times, where material goes somewhere and it comes back and it's gone, or it's faded so bad. So always very important to ask the customer where the sign is going to go, so that you can hopefully get the right material for them. So.
I was wondering, James, you're a super well-spoken guy. How quickly would you be able to give me a rundown of TroLase versus TroLase?
Well, I mean, TroLase, TroLase, there's absolutely two different applications for both. The TroLase is a thinner impact modified acrylic, as Bianca was saying. So it does have those bendable qualities. There's a polymer to it. So it does have some flex. It has the ability to be in a little more rougher circumstances than the TroLase. The TroLase is an acrylic with another coating on top of it. So it is a brittle, rigid acrylic. Now, if the qualities you want are the bridget, I invented a new word, rigid, brittle acrylic. That's thicker. So the TroLase is a thicker acrylic, I believe, 1/8 minimum. I believe it goes to a 1/4 inch. Kelly can probably speak on that, but it's a glossy acrylic. It has the engravable coating on the back, so you can use it for like cutout letters. So you want dimensional letters that have some engraving in the back of it that you can color fill. Whereas the TroLase is like a regular laminate material in thickness, either 1/8 or 1/16, that you can use for name tags, or you could use for machine labels or things like this. Whereas the TroLase is more sign applications more than anything. The TroLase, it would be pretty thick to wear as a name tag, and it would be a lot more pricey to use as a machine label or something like that. So definitely signage, more high-end, thicker things for TroGlass. All the rest for the TroLase Reverse for sure. And Kelly's got her hand up.
Yeah, so I was just going to say that when it comes to the reverse materials, the TroLase material, we only carry in the 1/8, which is about 3 millimeter. And then in the reverse, we do have a 1/4 inch, a 5 mil and a 3 mil, which is the 1/8 and the 1/4. And it's the only acrylic that we have in the thicker. So if you're looking for some of the other TroGlass products, they're only available in the 3 mil.
Okay.
That's a very, very good point. Really quickly, we had a question about magic erasers specifically. I'm not sure if they come under any other, there you go, flash. The term, I think, cleaning eraser or magic eraser, even just as a general term in a search engine, might get you something close, but you want the ones with Mike's picture on them, preferably, if you can get them.
Well, Amazon, if I can say that, a brand name, oops.
Of course, yeah. We said Mr. Clean about 30. I'm going to ask him for sponsorship, to be honest.
Yeah, but that's a household name. It's different. But I just did a search on Magic Eraser UK and came up with that. So,
yeah, I know that product really well because my son, who was about 3 years old, got a hold of a magic marker, and he decided to start writing on the walls and everything like that. And years and years ago, so he's still alive. Plus, he put stuff on my piano, on the keys of my piano with the magic marker too. So, but anyways, I cleaned a lot of that off with that product. So that's that product that's traditionally what you would see that product used for. So Costco sells industrial strength, big boxes, containers of it. And, lots of people in the industry will go to Costco or whatever and buy the big container. It's got about 10 or 12 sponges in it. And again, you just use them up, and when they'll just basically degrade as you use them. They'll just fall apart, and then you just replace them. So.
I wanted to ask you, I saw this one, some people turn off or decrease air assist when cutting or engraving acrylic specifically. What are your thoughts? I know we talked on this a little bit earlier, just James sort of mentioning the importance of having a proper exhaust in the system. And then, I know, having been taught by you guys, I sort of have set rigid rules in my mind around when and how to use air assist, but as it pertains to acrylic specifically, James, what would you tell this customer if this was a piece of advice they'd seen online and say?
Always have your air assist on. But that being said, we provide different cones to go over the air assist nozzles, and we also have a way to turn the air up and down. So if you have your air cranked and you have the teeny tiny nozzle on, you're going to pound the molten plastic that's just come off the surface of the material. You're going to shoot that right into your cut and all over your materials if you've got your air assist on full blast. You always should have your air assist on, kids, because this saves money in lenses. I used to be of the mind not to turn the air assist on, and then you'll get a much cleaner engraving. I have changed my ways, folks. We don't engrave without the air assist on. It protects your lens. It's part of our impact technology. But we do give you ways to turn the air down so you're not slamming it against the surface of the material. Tirade over.
That would be a great video for us to do, actually, possibly, is when and how to use certain nose cones and what would be the applications that would sort of, be well suited to each of those things.
True. Absolutely.
If only I knew someone who made laser videos. Let's see if we've got so many great questions. Thank you all so much for I beg your pardon?
I was just going to say, it's just like anything. The idea is to eliminate dust. And
right.
That's I go out of focus when we're doing the the material because it generates minimal amount of dust. Same as cutting. I mean, if you're not going all the way through the material, you're generating less heat, which is causing, a lot of the heat that's generated on cutting is what people are complaining about the stickiness. I don't have stickiness on material when I cut it out because I typically don't go all the way through the material unless I have to because it's got a rounded corner, a scallop corner, something like that. But even then, a lot of times what people are doing is they just use way too much power. And if it's a real problem, go over it twice. It won't be just use half the power or double your speed. A lot of times it's the same amount of time going over something twice as opposed to once. But I have had cleaner edges on material when I go over it twice as opposed to once. So sometimes, that will help out too. So. Sorry.
No, that's awesome. I appreciate it. We have so many great questions. I don't know if we'll be able to get to them all, but I'm going to try and fit in as many as I can.
Many. It's great. It's amazing.
Really good ones. And again, thank you guys so much. We'll be doing more of these in the future, probably once a month. I think once every 3 to 4 weeks. But really quickly. Oh yeah, please, Mike, go ahead for it. Yeah.
It's a question just came up here. How do you get rid of the lines when you reverse etch on the material? That if you go out of focus, then you will have more of a solid background. And if you're doing a lot of painting from the backside, when you go out of focus on that acrylic, you won't get the white dust in it. It'll be clear. So when you go to paint it, you'll get a nice paint finish on the reverse material. So out of focus is critical on the backside because it generates less dust, which means the acrylic is going to be clear, and then you'll also have less lines in the background. Okay, now that's my two thoughts. It will depend on which machine you have, but those are the two things that I would suggest. And use the least amount of power you can get away with. And that means testing your material, and that means not relying on what the manufacturer says. Okay, I know we give you suggestions in there, but play around with the settings a little bit if you're very finicky, because that's the secret to laser engraving is to play. People always ask me, how do I know so much? And I tell them it's because I screw up a lot. And if you looked at the garbage in the back there, it's full of rejects. And it's not to say that you've got to ruin a lot of material, but what it means is you need to experience your laser, you need to play with your laser, you need to know how it reacts with materials. And that means that whatever somebody says is not gold. It should be a starting point for you, and you should be playing around a little bit with that.
This, I think, might be our last sort of question. Then we have one other little segment I wanted to get into, but excuse me. This is one I wanted to direct towards Kelly, and I guess I could speak to it a little bit as well. But specifically, this first question from Nathbo about the frequency of new products or colors, and then also Bianca, I suppose I'd love if there was anything you could sort of point to in terms of the frequency of releases and also what maybe developing a new color looks like. But from my end. Excuse me again. Oh my goodness. From my end, certainly we're always looking for new and exciting products that we can release. There's always the question of what will be safe to laser. So late last year, for example, we released a laserable chalkboard material. And in order to release that, we did a lot of research on our end to find a material that would not only work great with the laser, but would also be safe. And we could dependably sell, with our full backing behind it kind of thing. So we always get really excited when we find something new, and we're always open to suggestions. If you ever want to get a hold of me or post something on one of our YouTube videos or our Instagram posts, if there's something you would love to see, then we're always open to that. But Kelly, I was curious, is there any sort of what is the process when a new product comes in? Like what does that look like, sort of on your behalf?
Well, color-wise, it's mostly the TroGlass where we're putting out new colors, and we're kind of following our head office in Austria when it comes to the release of the acrylics. Typically, we've done 2 to 3 per year, and we launch them we pretty much launch them when we have some product to start sending out. So we've done the glitter acrylic, we've done the mirror, we've done I think we just got some pastels in time for Easter. So we're pretty much following trends, maybe setting some for Canada, because nobody else is really putting out those. In terms of the TroLase, we haven't really put out any new colors per se. But in the TroGlass, we're always developing something new.
And just to speak to the TroLase, as the manufacturing facility, we get feedback regarding the global demand for new colors or new trends from the different subsidiaries, and specifically our mothership in Austria. So they'll listen and take feedback from all the subsidiaries as to new colors and demand globally, and they'll try to work with us to see if the demand satisfies our minimum order requirements, because whereas we can produce in smaller quantities, however, when we're bringing in the raw materials to produce it, our raw material requirements are usually rather high with our raw material suppliers. So it's just trying to get a good balance when we're launching new TroLase products.
I'll just add to what, I was just going to add to what Bianca was saying too, and kind of correct myself. When it comes to the TroLase, we did come out with a new product last year, the DPS series, which was pretty exciting for us because it did allow that option of adding color into the engraving by UV printing, engraving, and cutting all on the same material. And it does have a component in it that holds the ink much better than the regular TroLase. So we did put out a new TroLase product. And it took a while to catch, but I think people are starting to really realize its potential.
Yeah, it's designed.
No, I agree.
For...
It's one of those. No, sorry, please.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, we designed the digital print series for excellent ink adhesion with UV and LED curing inks. So while you can print to regular TroLase, if you want that superior ink adhesion, a lot of people will opt for the digital print series.
Definitely.
Yeah, and if we can give one
of our favorites.
I was going to say, if we can give one plug to Don and Levin, that is that the Trotec Laser Canada, if you want to make sure that you're up to date on everything that's being produced and presented by Trotec, then you want to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Trotec Laser Canada. But there are hundreds and hundreds of videos on the YouTube channel, and a lot of those videos go to the new product and ideas for the new product and everything like that. So definitely you want to make sure that you're subscribed to Trotec Laser Canada, so that you're kept up to date on everything that comes out. So
that's right.
I'm getting thumbs up from Lev through the office window. I want you to know he's he's enjoying this plug very much. Really briefly, because we've just passed an hour in the stream, but I wanted to share a little something that we put together here. Let me see. Share it from my screen. So I felt like we've done a pretty great job of covering off, I think, a lot of the basics of the materials. So really fast, I wanted to touch on this. This is something you can find in greater detail on our website, and I encourage you to look at it sort of in your own time. But if you're new to lasering, here is sort of a basic idea of some of the different materials that you might expect to work with if you're curious about, if something is laserable. This also breaks it down along the sort of the lines of the two major laser sources that Trotec offers. So either a CO2 laser, a fiber optic laser, or both in the same machine if you're speaking to a flex speedy machine. I think this is something we'll probably want to come back to in another stream to sort of touch on in greater detail, but I definitely encourage you to sort of check out these sort of keywords on our homepage, because there's a lot of great information about, whether the sort of material you're thinking about, if you have something in mind for an application, will be sort of safe to laser. And that is something always to keep in mind prior to starting a new job. Really quickly, again, we had a lot of great questions, and I'm more happy to talk about questions, to be honest, to take your questions than I am to get into this information. I think we've covered off a lot of information about the TroLase as a material, but here, if you're watching the VOD sort of after this has been posted to YouTube, you can pause it here if you'd like to know more. This is also information you can find in our catalog or on our materials website, engraving-supplies.ca. I want to pop that in there. It's all the sort of basics about the TroLase itself. More importantly, I wanted to get into this very quick ROI case that we've built. So this shows sort of a typical application that you might see with the TroLase material. I don't know who that is in the video, but he's damned handsome. So the danger label, one reason we sort of, on the past slide, we sort of point out that the TroLase is great for signage, but then also specifically for danger labels. And I wonder if I could ask you, James, is it my understanding, or am I right in saying that sort of when it comes to danger and caution labels specifically, that they have to follow certain parameters? They can't just be any material. They have to have certain colors or certain specific requirements that they have to check off?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure every municipality and every industry is different, but I know there are some projects that I've done in the past that, you know, it had to be this phenolic material, and I did it on TroLase, and oh gosh, well no, we need it on phenolic. Well, you had to tell the people to tell their architect that, you know, nobody uses phenolic anymore for labels, and that this is like a modern thing, and they realized that their architect was like 87 years old. So there are definitely, you know, colors that need to be done. I mean, especially in an ISO situation, there are lots of ISO designations that need colors for different things. Like anything that's safety related has to be yellow. Everything that is, you know, where you traverse is red, or something like this. So there's definitely within the ISO designations, there's definitely a color coding. Not too sure about material. I think that's you know, architect specific in some cases, but perhaps when it comes to chemicals, or when it comes to UV, or when it comes to heat, perhaps there are, you know, different materials that need to be used, and common sense sometimes comes into a key, but you know, common sense ain't that common.
Thank you, James. I appreciate that. Really quickly, I wanted to show sort of an ROI type breakdown of what this job might look like. This is a question we get a lot, is about how to price a job. And so it was something that when we were talking to these materials, we also wanted to talk to how you might look at, you know, working with the TroLase in a very practical way. If you've never used the TroLase, what might be something that you would do with it? And, you know, how might you go about pricing that new job? So in this particular case, we've talked about, you know, if you were doing one of these danger signs versus an entire 360 worth of material being done all at once. And as Mike said, again, when you've optimized this cut file, you can see here really quickly that, you know, if you're doing a single sign, you can have an engraving cut time of almost 2 minutes to do a single sign, and then down to about 1 minute per sign if you're doing 16 all at once. More important than that, though, and we're sharing this just specially with everyone watching the stream. These are just general numbers, of course, but we think, you know, they're based in fact, and certainly they'll give you a general sort of idea of how you might look at calculating an ROI. Really, really fast. Feel free to ask any questions, of course. On the left, we're talking about if you're making that single sign I mentioned. So if you have, say, a $25 setup fee that you're charging customers, a flat fee, and then a retail price of $9.85 that you're charging for the sign, that customer is going to pay $34.85. But if you're buying the quarter sheet of material there divided by 16, obviously one sign as opposed to the 16 you can get from the quarter sheet, that's $1.06 in materials. If you're paying somebody $15 an hour and it takes them 2 minutes to set up the file, then that's 50 cents you're paying. And then again, if this sort of engraving cut time is speaking to an opportunity time. So if you have an opportunity cost of $100 an hour, you know, what is the cost of doing this job as opposed to any other job? If this job takes a minute 53, that's $3.17 in cost that you're accruing in doing that job. So your total cost on that one sign might be $4.73. that would give you a gross profit of just over $30, as you can see. On the right side, same basic thing, same sort of setup. The retail price has been adjusted, giving a slight quantity break since the person's buying the full, quarter sheet of signs. But the 16 with the 15% quantity break, which kind of covers off. I don't know if you can see it. It's in the very, very small text at the bottom there, but it's basically just a 15% break to cover that setup fee, essentially. Oh, thank you. Secret computer wizard in the background. So for the 16 units, that would give you a revenue of just under $159. And then you have those same costs, right? You have that quarter sheet. You're using the whole quarter sheet this time, so it's about $17. The same 2-minute setup fee, since putting one piece of material, whether it's a quarter sheet or just enough for one sign, is the same amount of time. And then to cut 16 at $100 an hour, so 15 minutes, 56 seconds. It's just sort of midway, 26.55. I don't know why I'm looking for it. It's 26.55. So your total cost there is obviously about 10 times higher, but your gross profit is considerably more. This is something that we're going to return to, I think, as we talk about other materials. But this is, I think, is it fair to say, gentlemen, that this is sort of how we would look at, in a very basic way, if you're considering a new project, in this case with the TroLase, how you might break down the costs and the pricing for your customer, in a way that will be meaningful, sort of, for you.
Yeah, I mean, this is when I do ROIs or for my customers. Anyway, this is basically how I break them down. The one thing I normally do, and that when you're making ROIs, everybody for this, you don't charge $15 an hour for your person setting up, because while they're setting up this job, they've just lost 3 other jobs. So I always do it at $100 an hour lost opportunity. It's not going to change. It's not going to change the numbers much in this case. But if you're doing a job that's labor intensive, I always charge $100 an hour for my setup time, not $15 an hour. But other than that, it's fantastic. Yeah.
I think everyone has a little bit different of a way of calculating things. So, but this is definitely like a good basis of where to start. Some people are charging by the letter or by the square inch, and that's definitely okay. But just to have the basis of how to start figuring it out, this is a great tool.
Yeah, because I remember for years if you look at a 1x3 name badge, and on a 12x24 sheet, you get 96 name badges out of a 12x24 sheet, and you're charging, $5. Let's say you charge $5 a name badge. Well, that's almost $500 out of a $17 piece of material. Right now, you've got the magnet on the back or whatever. But again, there's great profit in this material, and make sure that you're charging accordingly for doing, like Jimmy said, your setup time and everything like that too. So
I think one thing to bear in mind too, and this is something that certainly I know I've heard James speak to in the past, but I mean, when it comes to first and foremost, one of the benefits of lasers is, as Mike is saying, sort of you have a sheet for $17 you might be able to get $500 of profit out of, but also once that design is complete, if you're reusing a design, it also minimizes the amount of sort of pre-processing time you have to do. That's sort of a one-time thing with lasers, right? Where once that job is stored in job control, you can just put that same material in over and over and repeat that job and not have to do that sort of design side again and again and again. But also, beginning to move towards this question here from Mathbo Games that I wanted to pose to all of you. I feel like, James, I may have heard you speak in the past about how, I mean, obviously setting a price that is a multiplier, of your cost, sort of building in a margin is a logical way to do things. Yeah. But I feel like you've sort of spoken to, times where you've set a price that was considerably higher simply because of, factors like short time frame or, a customer needed a specific whatever it was.
Or I don't want to do it. I mean, I love the I don't want to do it price. Like, this is a terrible job, but gosh, if you would give me, $400 an hour to do this, I might do it. And, you'd be surprised at how many times people will actually pay that, and you go, oh well, that was cool. But yeah, don't sell yourself short. That's the number one issue. You sell yourself short, you ruin the whole industry as a whole. For a couple extra pennies, but then everybody races to the bottom. I know that my customers who are the most successful, they work the least amount of time, and they charge lots, and they do a great job, and they get the stuff out on time, and they do not worry about being the cheapest. So I mean, a multiplier is fine. It works great. You just got to know your market. If you know your market and you know who you're selling to and where you're selling to and what the market will bear, you'll be much better off in the end. Do your research.
The I don't want to do it cost is you would not believe what we have to pay James to be on these webinars. It's astronomical. It's brutal.
I know the mounds of coffee you guys send me. It's insane.
Not Tim Hortons coffee. You see, it's Starbucks.
Yes.
Hey, Don.
Yes.
Don, just to keep consistent with the other webinar, I just want everybody to understand that danger sign, James is right. It's yellow. That's why it's there, because it was amazing how much less machine breakdowns and issues we had when we put those danger labels on the machines in the showroom, so that marketing wouldn't destroy our machines. So it does a really.
Oh,
sorry, everyone. Mike had to go.
I don't know if there's something wrong with Mike's speed.
Not everyone would understand that one.
No, it's an inside joke.
I threw a few Mr. Cleans out there. I more than deserve.
Exactly.
I really quickly, I wanted to say thank you, everyone, for joining the webinar. All these great questions. We really, really appreciate it. We can't tell you. I mean, you guys really do make the webinar for us. We have a lot of knowledge here at Trotec, but we're always looking for the best way to sort of share it with you in a meaningful way and in a way that is sort of impactful for you. So we have the Laser Jam sessions that occur every Friday. If you can't get enough of James and Mike, and I mean, how possibly could you? I think they will be back tomorrow in the Laser Jam sessions, same exact time. Another big mound of coffee for James, of course. Excuse me. We're going to be doing the 1 hour design challenges with the Rayjet every Wednesday. Our very talented designer, Miguel Machado, who you might have seen pass by Mike in the back a couple of times, just over his left shoulder there. You can see the sign. We're doing those every Wednesday morning at the same time, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. They are a lot of fun. And then we're going to be doing these materials webinars, I think, as I said, probably about every 3 weeks to a month, whenever I can get this talented crew of people together. I wanted to thank you guys as well for being on with me this morning. I could not do it without the four of you, and thank you so much for your time.
Thanks.
Yeah. And thanks.
Dave, email me.
Thanks everyone.
Bianca, I mean, I wish we could have more time to just chat about. I actually would love to visit the factory and see.
Anytime. We would welcome that.
Yeah, just learning about the process and how you guys talk about the plastic is so much different than how us users do it. So it's very cool to have you. Thank you so much.
No, I appreciate it, and we welcome visitors.
Yeah, awesome. I can't wait.
There's the plan.
Nice.
There's a plan.
We have this. Definitely check out this this video.
Did you guys get flooded out in the hurricane?
Excuse me? Yes.
Did you guys get flooded out in the hurricane?
We did not. Luckily, the plant is in a great spot, so we were temporarily closed just due to power outages, but we were lucky to get the power back up quick, and we had a backup source for power, and we are always ready to come back very quickly from hurricanes, and most of them don't impact the plant or our manufacturing capabilities at all. The one a couple of years ago was a very unusual case. So
oh, I'm getting this one from Lev. I'm getting the hook.
I'm gonna need more coffee, so it's
More coffee. Yeah, we can. If we get to an hour and a half with James, it's going to put us in coffee debt. Thank you again all so much. We'll be sure to put out an e-blast when the next one of these will be coming out. So we look forward to getting to chat with you all again. But in the meantime, take care and we'll chat soon.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.